Welcome to your second week in our focus season, Mission in Focus. Last week we discussed the importance of seeing ourselves and other people the way that God sees us, seeing not just the mud, but also the masterpiece. And that's what this series is all about, seeing things differently, because if we want to do the work of Jesus, then we have to see like Jesus. This past Sunday, Pastor Corey said that not only do we have to see people differently, but we also have to see the issues that people struggle with differently. He also said that the opposite of poverty is not wealth, it's shalom. Shalom isn't just peace, but it's this idea of everything functioning properly according to God's will. Shalom is what people experience when their financial, personal, social, and spiritual relationships are operating in a healthy way. So poverty isn't just financial. People also experience personal poverty when their relationships to themselves, their body, their mind, their soul is experiencing a deficit. People experience spiritual poverty when something is off about their relationship with God. And people experience social poverty when their relationship with others is lacking. And all of these areas of our lives are intimately connected. And so we have these four categories of poverty: financial, personal, social, and spiritual. And we see these at play in Acts chapter 3 when Peter and John heal a person who doesn't have the use of his legs. This man is begging for money, but Peter goes to the root of his poverty. You can't read that message without sensing the discomfort and the eye contact, the confrontation, the boldness that takes place, as well as the risk that was involved. I mean, could you imagine for a moment how awkward it would have been if God didn't show up? But Peter and John didn't let that stop them. They saw a masterpiece with a lot of mud, but it didn't deter them. I have this friend, Ray, who is really good at seeing through the mud. Ray met a homeless young adult named Jimmy several years ago. And Jimmy had some quirks and totally had his own unique personality. He was very against drug use and alcohol, so he had some great things going for him. But his homelessness was the result of mental and emotional and maybe even developmental issues. He wasn't just financially impoverished. When Ray first met Jimmy, he bought him food from Subway and he listened to his story. And then every few days, Ray would drive to where he first met Jimmy and he'd keep an eye out for him. When he saw him, he'd buy him a meal and he'd continue to listen to him as he shared about his day. And this continued. And sometimes they'd go for months without seeing each other, but Ray would always drive down there and keep an eye out for him. And eventually, Ray invited Jimmy to church. And eventually, Jimmy even came to church. And eventually other couples at the church would get involved in Jimmy's life. And one couple helped Jimmy find a job. Another helped him find a room in their home. They charged him rent, and with the rent, they started a savings account for Jimmy. And once Jimmy saves up enough money, he will rent a place of his own. Ray saw the mud, but he also saw the masterpiece. And he didn't worry about how much mud there was. He trusted God and he loved Jimmy. He bought meals and he listened and he invited. Now Jimmy has a church. He has a family that cares for him. He has a job and he has a place to call home. And it all started because some young kid several years ago was willing to take a chance and the church stepped up. With your small group, read Acts chapter 3 verses 1 to 26 and then discuss this. How does the way that you see poverty affect the way that you choose to get involved? And what needs to change about your life so that you can see like Jesus in order to do the good works that have been prepared in advance for you?